Hello, and thank you for joining us, our Thursday edition of Alaska Weather. I am meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner, and today is October 4th, 2018. You can always get our information by dialing our 800 number, by dialing on the phone 1-800-472-0391. We can also be found on the internet if you search weather.gov/Alaska and just click around on the areas of your choice. And if you have any questions about the show or our webpage, feel free to email our TV lead at david.snider@noaa.gov. Now let's start with the weather topics of the day, which surround the Bering storm system. If you look out here towards the west around St. Paul, the Pribilof Islands, you're going to see a counterclockwise circulation. This is a mature low pressure system that has been across the Bering for several days, brings some unsettled weather throughout the southern mainland and the surrounding waters. So let me just put that into motion again. You can see there's a long stream of moisture with embedded short waves across the system, bringing continued developing fronts. Now let me move off here so you can see the southeast and the Gulf waters, because we do have another front at the surface that is developed, and this is bringing a circulation here across the central Gulf. Mainly what you can see on the satellite is that there's a precipitation band that's stretching from the eastern Gulf waters back towards the Kenai Peninsula. This is bringing quite a bit of rainfall for the coastal locations this afternoon. However, to the north, it's a little bit more broken as you go from Fairbanks towards the Brooks Range. Along the coastal conditions to the north slope, we'll see an opposite circulation from a ridge that is just to the north of the coast there. And you can see that slightly in the darker gray colors. It's kind of clearing in the afternoon. It's hard to see to the north due to the colder temperatures north of the Brooks Range that comes in. But they're fairly clear actually this afternoon from Fairbanks and north. And on this surface map, the darker colors to the north there are just showing colder temperatures at the surface. The satellite has a hard time distinguishing sometimes when the temperatures at the surface are so cold. So to the south, though, you can see a very warm signal with the warm front coming into the eastern Gulf waters there. So we do have some thunderstorm activity that is possible for tonight. We're seeing this storm developing here in the central Gulf, and that's going to be pushing slowly north as we head through the evening hours. Now let's look at the storm system back here towards the Bering, and we're mainly seeing shower activity along the Bering system, but there are some very strong gusty southerly flow between 30 to 50 miles per hour as this gradient is squeezed between this low pressure system and a ridging here to the southeast. Now we do have a little bit heavier showers across the Bristol Bay area and the Kuskokwim as the front just lifted north during the afternoon hours. Now as we head through the evening hours, we're going to see those showers continuing along from the Kenai Peninsula, pushing up towards the Copper River and the Susitna valleys. Strong winds are going to continue across the eastern Bering and the southwest, but we're also going to see some stronger winds across the eastern Beaufort seacoast as that pressure gradient is a little bit tighter here on the coast, and that's due to the ridging just setting off the coast to the north and this low pressure system squeezing that gradient. So easterly flow along the Beaufort seacoast is going to persist between 30 to 50 miles per hour. So we did warm up significantly across the central interior up to 50 to mid-50s again towards Kotzebue. Temperatures are kind of moderating with a cooler air mass, however, coming in on the backside of this low pressure system out in the Bering. That kind of taps into and helps pull that colder air mass. Mainly temperatures staying in the low to mid-40s across the Bering, while temperatures that had breaks in the sky had seen temperatures in the 50s for the southern mainland right before that front moved through during the late afternoon hours. Now expect the heaviest showers to continue mainly across the northern waters and along the northeastern Gulf there. Towards the inner channels, we're expecting more light shower activity as those showers are just kind of pulled east with the upper level waves that are moving ahead. Now we do have ridging to the south, so Kodiak will be on the showery side, but the low pressure system in the Bering will still have some influence on pushing those short waves and some ongoing shower activity. We're really going to stay in that rain pattern across the same areas through your Friday as the low pressure system in the Bering continues to shift a little bit further west and begin to weaken. Notice by tomorrow, it's going to be down to a 980 millibar low. So that low is going to be filling significantly from 966 millibars today to 980 tomorrow. So in the weakening phase, but it'll still have some troughing around it. So that'll initiate ongoing showers for the Bering. And with the upper level waves moving aloft, we'll see those showers continuing to push inland across the southern mainland, while the northern tier of the state is going to be under the influence of the ridge sitting just off the north slope. Now let's take a look at your Saturday weather pattern. We're going to mainly see the same similar pattern happen, as we'll have another low pressure system. That low that's kind of sending a wave over the chain tonight is going to be helping develop a new surface low, and there's some uncertainty still in this surface low. We're expecting it to develop on Saturday in the southern Gulf, so lighter showers on the backside towards Kodiak Island, and there's some differences in the track of this low pressure system as it moves across the Gulf. So if it were to move slightly further north, they'll have higher chances for rain across the southeast. Right now we're thinking that there's a fairly good chance for the increase of precipitation as we head into Saturday for the southeastern locations through the northern panhandle. So be on the lookout for that low pressure system to be changing up the pattern for the upcoming weekend. And then to the north, we're going to continue to see the pressure gradient across the northeastern tier of the state to be a little bit tighter. However, the ridge to the north is going to be shifting further to the east, and that's going to be bringing that east to northeasterly flow from the eastern Beaufort Seacoast, which goes all the way out through Dead Horse. But we'll see winds a lot lighter on the northwest coast. Mainly the gusty wind conditions for the southwestern areas are going to be tapering down as well. The main wind concerns at this point for Saturday is going to be along that Beaufort Seacoast and just along the troughing across the Bering locations. Now let's take a look at your temperatures. Your temperature forecast for tonight is going to be on a similar trend that we saw last night with the coldest temperatures near the Arctic Village along the northern tier of the state just under the freezing mark, while you head towards the southwest, and those temperatures are going to be fairly warm and mild in the mid-40s, as well as all across the Bering locations. And we'll also see the south central locations go from just near freezing to in the lower 40s to 45 degrees at Kodiak there. Ketchikan out in that direction should be slightly the similar trends with temperatures in the mid-40s, a little bit cooler as you head into the northern channels just below 40 degrees. Now let's take a look at Friday afternoon temperatures. Very similar to what we saw once again today, with temperatures still creeping up into the upper 40s to lower 50s for the southeast, and also much of the southern tier of the state we'll see into the mid-50s. Across the north, still temperatures hanging there into the mid-30s, while we see slightly warmer temperatures across the southwest into the mid-50s. The Bering is going to be slightly warmer as well into the lower 50s, and the trends are going to be cooler again, by 5 degrees at least on Saturday morning for the Bering locations, heading down toward that 45-degree mark, and similar trends in the upper 30s to 40s across the southern tier of the state, with the northeastern areas seeing in the teens to upper 20s. Let's take a look at your Saturday afternoon temperature trends. Again, in the mid-40s to mid-50s in the northeastern Beaufort Seacoast, still hanging on into the lower 30s. Although thoughts are is that the high temperatures are going to start getting a little bit cooler across the northeastern tier of the state for the weekend. For the Bering and Alaska Peninsula locations, we're going to see temperature trends in the mid-50s. Let's take a look at your temperature trend. And this temperature trend map, I thought I'd bring this in because the significance about this map is that we haven't seen any snow in areas such as Fairbanks, and normally they have recorded snowfall amounts by October 11th. So this year it's been fairly warm, and these are our temperature trends. If you look at the top of the map, you can see below normal would be a bluish color, a cool color, and the warm colors, reds, are above normal. And what we're seeing at the end of this period, ending October 18th, is going to be very warm, Possibly, this is a possible trend. It's not saying we're definitely going to be, but the average trend is going to be the warmer than normal. So looking at temperatures to possibly keep snow from falling on the ground through this period. So that's the date we're looking at, is October 11th for the Fairbanks area. And then just looking across all of the southern tier of the state, we are expecting those temperatures to stay above average. So that's very unique for October, to see such a warm September going into a warm October. Now we're going to take a look at the precipitation trends. Now I know we've seen very regular precipitation across the west and southern areas of the state, and it doesn't look like much is going to change. Here's the below normal, like the darker colors, above normal being the brighter greens at the top of your map there. So we're expecting those drier trends to continue. Again, this period is at the 8 through 14 day precipitation period, ending on October 18th. We're going to keep those drier trends across the eastern areas of the state, while we do see a wetter trend as you head towards the southwestern areas of the state. So these are indicating above normal chances to see higher precipitation than normal. Then the climate normals are based on a 30-year period. And we're going to see Juneau right in that dry to near normal category. So in just a minute, we're going to be back with your aviation forecast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, and now on to the aviation portion of your forecast. We're going to take a look at the southern tier of the state, as we're going to see some widespread MVFR and IFR conditions as we head into your Friday morning. Looking at these conditions spreading across the southwest coast, with also MVFR across much of the central and western southern parts of the Bering, including the Alaska Peninsula. And we do have some thunderstorm possibilities across a low pressure system that's along the central and northern waters of the Bering. Now let's take a look at the southeast. We also see some MVFR conditions creeping in, especially across the northern channels there, seeing some IFR conditions for your Friday morning. Up to the north, we are seeing VFR conditions, which will continue through the afternoon. Looking at MVFR, IFR conditions staying across much of the south central locations, and also for the southwest, the Portage locations are definitely going to be staying down all day, as well as the Alaska Range out there. Southeast still seeing a persistent pattern through the afternoon of IFR and MVFR, widespread MVFR conditions a little bit more during the afternoon hours, with thunderstorm possibilities closer to the Alaska Peninsula. Now let's take a look at your flying weather for Saturday morning. We're going to see more MVFR conditions continuing across the Bering waters and for South Central. Also the IFR conditions along the northern coast, with ridging just to the north. We will see some moisture getting trapped underneath there. So MVFR and IFR up along the north coast. And then we'll see IFR and MVFR conditions widespread across the eastern waters of the Gulf of Alaska, and as well as the southeast. For the afternoon, not too much improvement for the southeast or south central, staying in the same pattern for the southwest as well, continuing across the Bering with a little bit more increase in IFR conditions for the Alaska Peninsula. Now let's take a look at your passes in more depth. We have Anaktuvuk Pass for tomorrow, VFR, and we're going to see the same conditions at Adigan. Looking at your Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, IFR conditions for you, and for Rainy Pass is going to be down also in IFR conditions. Now for Windy, look for IFR on your Friday, and for Isabel, we'll go IFR to MVFR late day. For Mentasta, looking for a VFR day going down to MVFR, and for Tanita, we'll go from MVFR to IFR. Conditions for Portage are going to stay down all day, IFR, and IFR for Chilkoot and White Pass. Now let's take a look at the freezing levels for tomorrow morning. Looking at the northern tier of the state, the freezing levels are draped across towards the southeast, with a climb from 2,000 to 4,000 feet in the upper levels across the state, a little bit higher down towards the Gulf at climbing to 6,000 feet, and fairly steady 2,000 to 4,000 across the northern and central Bering locations, possibly a little bit less as you head towards the central areas of the Aleutians. That's because we have a colder air mass advecting in on the backside of the low pressure system that's centered over the Bering. Now let's take a look at the icing concerns for tomorrow. We do have quite a bit of icing concerns around the low pressure system, with the main concerns above 5,000 across the Bering waters, below 5,000 towards the northwest coast, and then we have areas across the south and southeastern areas of the state above 5,000 feet for those locations. Now let's take a look at the jet stream. A strong jet becoming more amplified. Just south of the Bering here, we have 40 knot jet peaking, and then coming down to 120 knots, hanging on to the ridge to the north, becoming a little bit stronger on the backside of that ridge, 100 knot jet up there. And then the stack system that we've been following the last few days with the center across the Bering is going to have a speed max between 25 to 40 knots out of the south across the southwestern areas of the state. Now let's take a look at, there's a change of direction across that low pressure system. And then for the interior locations, lighter flow, change of direction depending on where you are at in the state, southerly across the southern half, easterly across the northern half, and a little bit more of a speed max along the north coast. Now for the southeastern locations, we're looking at 10 to 25 knots onshore flow there. It's a stack system, so same conditions, pretty much down to 3,000 feet. Onshore flow, 10 to 25 knots across the southern tier of the state, and then easterly flow as you head to the north. And then across the southwest, a little bit of more of a speed max across the eastern Bering as well, 20 to 40 knots out that direction, and then change of wind directions around the low center in the Bering. So primary concerns are going to be across the eastern waters of the Bering and the Alaska Peninsula.
Saying hi to the planets.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dehne Regis, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. How can you tell a planet from a star?
Practice, practice, and more practice. But once you find a planet, you've got it made. Planets won't move much from night to night. So after you identify Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars, you could keep coming back to them night after night.
In fact, during his nightly rounds, Dehne likes to say hi to them.
Hey, Jupiter! How's it going, Saturn? Mars, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's definitely the ultimate long-distance relationship. But still, I think it's cool to know that that light up there is a planet, a world all its own.
And you can let your imagination take you for a visit. And since we on Stargazers have the power over space and time, let's take you there.
So, will they say hi back?
Sure they will, Dehne. Let's head to the planets.
Okay, we're facing southwest at about 8 p.m. any night this week. As the sky darkens, the two brightest star-like objects are actually planets.
It's really easy to identify the first one.
Howdy, Jupiter!
Yep, that really bright star is actually the largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter. It's over 560 million miles away from us this week, but still shines brighter than anything else in the southwest.
Planets like Jupiter all shine by reflected sunlight. Basically, sunlight travels hundreds of millions of miles, strikes Jupiter, then bounces hundreds of millions of miles back to your eyes.
The second planet, higher in the sky and closer to the south, is the ringed planet Saturn.
Hey, Saturn, what's shaking?
Right now, Saturn is about 950 million miles away. At this distance, you won't see the rings without a telescope. But don't worry, we'll fly in for a closer look soon after we visit one more planet.
Goody. Now we're facing south at about 8:15 p.m. Now that it's a little darker, we can see more stars. Saturn is still there. Hey, Saturn, my main man.
Yes, and another planet is about 36 degrees to Saturn's left. It's bright, it's red, it's the planet Mars.
Hey, Mars, what's new on your dusty, rusty surface?
Back in July, Mars is about 35 million miles away. That was super close and made it super bright. Since then, the Earth is pulled away from Mars in its orbit around the Sun. Mars is now almost 60 million miles from Earth.
But no planet is too far for us to visit with our skyboards. Ready to fly? Up,
and away! First stop, Mars. Normally it takes a rocket 6 to 7 months to make the journey, but we can get you there in no time.
Mars is actually a pretty small planet. At only about 4,200 miles across, it's about half as wide as the Earth. But it has the largest volcano in the solar system, Olympus Mons, which is 3 times taller than Mount Everest. And Mars has the grandest of canyons, Valles Marineris, a 2,000-mile-long, 5-mile-deep gash in the surface.
When you fly this close to Mars, you better look out for its 2 moons. There goes Phobos, and watch out, Dehne.
Whoa, whoa, there went tiny Deimos. Boy, Deimos may be small, but I'm glad it didn't hit me. Faster than the speed of light, we're approaching Jupiter. Now you can see many of its 79 known moons looking like little fireflies circling the planet.
As we get closer, we start to see the planet itself and its cloud bands, and coming around the side is the Great Red Spot.
Since Jupiter is 88,000 miles across, everything we see here is humongous. The red spot, for example, is 2 Earths wide.
Although to the naked eye, Saturn just looks like an ordinary yellow star, it really comes to life when you look at it through a telescope.
You can see the rings and some of its 62 moons, but the ultimate view came from the Cassini spacecraft, which orbited Saturn from 2004 to 2017. That planet just does not look real.
But it is, and you can find Saturn tonight along with Jupiter and Mars.
Whenever you see them, be sure to say hi.
Keep looking up.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello, and now we're going to go on to the marine part of the show. And we're going to take a look first at today's sea ice edge. And today, of course, is October 4th. And we are taking a look at the ice edge not growing in the next few days as the sea surface temperatures are still too warm just yet. We are seeing some circulation, so some eroding still going on the ice edge, and there is some movement to the north and west with the ice edge being moved around the ridge that is out in that direction. Now let's take a look at the southeast for the day on Friday. We're expecting primarily a southerly flow across most of the area. We do have a westerly flow as you head up there towards Yakutat. And we're seeing all between 10 to 20 knots across the marines, with seas 2 feet across the inner waters, and then the outer waters are going to be between 8 to 11 feet. On your Saturday, expect wind directional changes, more westerly in the outer waters, a south to southeasterly flow for those inner channels, seas between 2 to 3 feet. And then for your outer waters, we're looking between 5 to 10 feet. Let's take a look at the south central locations for your Friday forecast. We're looking at primarily under small craft wind for most of the area, just the northeastern Gulf there, a little bit of a 25-knot wind along the northeastern Gulf, and then primarily under 20 knots for the rest of the area. So Friday's shaping up to be pretty good with seas between 2 to 6 feet, the highest seas just south of the Kenai Peninsula and just along the eastern coastal areas. For your Saturday forecast, a little bit stronger winds picking up out of the east direction along and south of the Kenai. Up the inlet, we're looking for a northeasterly flow, and as well as the Prince William Sound location. Seas for the Cook Inlet and Prince William Sound will be between 2 to 4 feet, with higher seas between 5 to 6 feet across the north and western Gulf and just along the southern tip of the Kenai. Looking at the Alaska Peninsula, stronger flow out in this direction, so we do have some small crafts out in that direction, primarily south winds with seas between 5 to 10 feet across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, just a little bit lower seas there and slightly slower wind speeds. We do have higher speeds increasing for the Bristol Bay location and a little bit more on the eastern side of the Alaska Peninsula, all mainly out of the south winds until you get to about Kodiak Island, becomes a little bit more easterly. For your Friday forecast across the Aleutians, we're looking at winds primarily widespread widespread westerly winds just trying to step out of your way here. And we're primarily seeing seas between 9 to 12 feet, highest seas just south of the Aleutian chain there. And then as we head into Saturday, looking at the winds, very similar, lighter speeds though, a south direction becoming more southwesterly, and seas will be between 7 to 11 feet. Let's take a look at the west coast on Friday. A small crest for much of the area out of the southeast direction. Seas on this day is going to be around 5 to 10 feet. So look for those higher seas continuing as we head into your Saturday. That wind direction is going to primarily stay out of the south to east direction. Winds definitely picking up on that day, primarily along and north of Nunivak Island. We are going to see slightly slower wind speeds as you head south of the Pribilof Islands. For the north and west coast areas, look for an east to southeast flow, Kotzebue Sound, definitely a small craft, and back towards the Beaufort Seacoast, slightly higher gusts, more like a 35 knot gust along the northeastern coast, especially in the morning. And then as we head into your Saturday, small crafts continue for the same locations, a little bit lighter speeds as you head north of the Kotzebue Sound there, across the northwest coast between 10 to 20 knots, winds still staying out of the east and south directions. Now let's go ahead and wrap up your forecast again for tonight. Expect that low pressure system out in the Bering to begin to fill and weaken. However, rain is going to continue across the southern tier of the state. The heaviest rain showers are expected across the north and eastern Gulf locations, with that rain beginning to pull inland towards the Copper River and the Copper River Valley and the Susitna Valley. Looking for ongoing showers to continue for the same locations for Friday. That low pressure system out towards the west is going to continue to fill to 990 millibars on Friday, with just the trough swinging axis around it. It's going to keep that gradient tight, so gusty winds going to continue across the eastern Bering and also the eastern Beaufort Seacoast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.